I'm here to deliver justice, and I am always on time!
Let's make a deal. You keep the experience, I'll keep the souls.
Oh, how good am I? Place this apple on your head, just like that.
Let's do this! Those demons aren't going to cleave themselves!
the Cuervo Doppeldrinker.
Go long.
Good afternoon, everyone. The historical record is not really the historical record. What we know is the largest floods ever, always eclipsed if we look further back in time. These last 150 years are nothing. And when we start looking at 360 year, 1,440 year, or 11,500 year cycles, we're connecting December 21st, 2020. The Southeast U.S. megaflood cycle is right on that 1,440 year cycle. Jupiter and Saturn conjuncting the closest in 800 years. And as we take 9-degree steps around the circumference of our circle, the Great Conjunction, we can map out the eclipses. We can map out the intertwining cycles of time. Now we're mapping out something far larger, a galactic overlapping of cycles. Energetically, not from the elitists on the planet who are riding on top of this natural cycle. As Americans seek economic protection, after the most controversial election in U.S. history, J.P. Morgan Chase is placing billions of dollars for silver to grow more than 100% in 2021. Year to date in 2020 alone, gold is up 30% and silver rising more than 50%. And now we're entering a new year facing economic realities of a global economic crisis caused by COVID and political reactions. Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or physical silver. And you may be eligible for the No Fee for Life IRA. Give them a call at 1-800-356-4470, and the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 5 years in a row from 2016 to present. And you work directly with an owner, avoiding absurd fees. To find more information, the link's in the description box below. And now on with the video. And as I was looking for Native American healing and energy spots for the Cherokee in eastern Tennessee, I stumbled across this waterways, how they behaved before recorded history, because an enormous amount of the Cherokee sacred spots has been inundated by the Tennessee Valley Authority since the 1930s, literally washed away the entire physical existence. So I started looking at the floods, because the Cherokee stories go back into mega floods that are far larger than today. The largest flood so far, 1867, and this is in the southeast U.S., but if you're going to do this, you can find your own regional massive floods above what the recorded history is the last 150 or so years. Delve into the stories from the Native Americans around your region. If we go back over the last 10,000 years, what was considered the supermassive, unbelievable mega flood was a mere flood. 3 substantially larger floods in the last 5,000 years, and at least 3 that matched this inundating, all-encompassing, flooding up to the top of mountains floods in the last 2,500 years. So it really does take us going further back in history to find the full cyclicity or the full range of how incredible nature can be. So the area here on the map, and again, you can do this regionally. There's so much information out there, but a lot of things do remain the same. So this is a flood study here with the fluvial deposits in river basins to show you how much floodwater came down and how large the particles were. Larger the flood, the bigger the stones that the floodwaters are going to move. So what they did was look through these different indicators here. If there's a flood, obviously debris is going to collapse and crash into trees. So they look for cellular damage on trees. They also look for what is called alcoves, how much the water had splashed up and eroded into different areas, because a massive flood is going to erode at different rates. They also looked at scarring and slips compared to what the regular low water or regular river is that you see compared to high water. So they have all these different deposits to look at, from the gravel to the erosion to the alcoves, and then also the trees themselves being damaged. Now, a lot of the study has been focused on the North Atlantic subtropical high. And as this moves, it's going to push hurricanes further into the Gulf, and as they spin out, it's going to create more moisture. And it could be all the way through the Texas, southeast U.S., or wherever it pushes, even in the desert Southwest, based on this North Atlantic subtropical high. And they show you a rendition here of if it pushes further west, it's going to create drier conditions in some areas that would normally become wet. If it's more centered in the Atlantic, the track of hurricanes is going to take a different track. And then they started to try to correlate this and say, all right, maybe this was the cause of the massive floods that they had seen over the last 10,000 years. But the authors themselves, not the sole driver of the fluvial activity in any basin, meaning that the causation of the North Atlantic subtropical high results in an enormous amount of floods from hurricanes, but there has to be something else. But what I found really interesting here is a 1,400-year cycle within the cycle that they referenced here back 10,000 years. The comparison of the different basins. You got the Mississippi Basin, Tennessee, and also the South Atlantic Gulf Coast. So that encompasses pretty much the entire southeast U.S. But the red boxes there are the data they have from the Paleo Hurricane Record. Now, one of those smack dab in the middle of a spike, the other one leading into a spike. But when we're going back that far in time, 2,800 years, I'm in a 50-year window. How much of a variance is that? And then what is the plus or minus times on this? And then as we sit today, moving into the solstice here in 2020, 360-year little ice age cycle is due, because if we go back to 1640 and we come all the way to today, we're due for another grand solar minimum, bringing in the next little ice age. But at the same time, multiples of those equal a 1,440-year cycle, which also dovetails right into the flood cycle. But on top of that, multiples of the 1440 bring you right up to 11,500. And Douglas Vogt's work with the micronova. A reset is inbound any way you look at it. So if the World Economic Forum wants to ride on top of this natural cycle where there would be so many energetic changes anyway, maybe the news will make more sense to you once you see the coupling and overlapping of cycles, elitist money, and where we're going with our Earth. Grand solar minimum at the minimum, which would be a societal reset anyway. If you look back through history, in these cycles here, about every 400 years going back in time, even going back 4,000 years of 10 of these grand solar minimums, you'll see that society resets itself economically, governmental-wise, the way the structure of government is handled, and the population migration and food pricing all along with this. Fast forward a little bit and couple those together. Not only do we get a massive cycle of Jupiter and Saturn connecting, something so close in the skies that it hasn't been seen since 1226 AD, 800-year cycle, but we're also getting this 1,440-year cycle overlapping in the same exact time. And they talk about specifically dramatic and rapid changes in climate. So perhaps excuses were given in advance why the climate would be changing so much, so you think it's another causation instead of the real causation of cycles in time, not human activity. But if we do start to overlap these cycles, we're due for many of them overlapping right in through 2021. Grand solar minimum, 1440 year, the changing of the elements, and what does that mean really, these great conjunctions? The magnetic coupling affects our sun, that affects our Earth as well. And looking out back in the past, this cycles around the 360 degrees of the zodiacal sign. And look how close Saturn and Jupiter are going to be on the 16th. And as you move forward into the solstice on the 21st, they're almost indiscernible amongst each other. It'll be a great star in the sky. Now, if you were to couple a comet in there for a passing of a week or two, you might have people follow that to a certain location. But we are talking about Saturn and Jupiter, and notice how they're represented here in 1489. Plasma, represented by dragons. Phoenix, represented by rebirth after energetic coupling and changes. Now, to understand this conjunction, it moves 9 degrees every 20 years. So as it transits through the circle of the zodiac, You can see how the triangle moves across. Maybe this is a little bit easier for you to understand. Every 20 years, it traverses 9 more degrees around the circle until it comes back. Incredible synchronicity in how many cycles are overlapping at this very moment. And perhaps some of these earlier renditions from the 1500s and 1400s make more sense when you see the conjunction of electromagnetic activity affecting the human brain and how our weather systems behave on this planet. Things are mappable. This is a diagram here of all the lunar eclipses back 2,000 years prior. The number of days in between the eclipses, that is a mappable cycle, clear for you to see if we do it over time. Fast forward it, de Vries cycle, Gleisberg cycle, Schwab cycles, grand solar minimum cycles, small gears in the back of a Swiss watch, along with the lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, shifting of the elements, bringing us through the last 10,000 years of time over the warmth to the cool. And perhaps the reason the ancients were so focused on how we progress through the precession of the equinoxes, we're entering the first minute of the first degree of Aquarius on top of all these other cycles on December 21st. Thanks for watching. Now you'll understand why I feel we need to get more self-sufficient so quickly. Please join me on Homestead 2030 Patreon /Adapt2030. Hope you got something out of the video, and I'll see you next time. Where are the cycles in your neighborhood?
The holidays are a time for giving.
To your friends.
Your family.
To your teacher.
In that spirit of giving,
Chevy's proud to give our employee a discount to everyone.
the Chevy price you pay
Is what we pay.
Not as
world religions and secret societies today. While theosophy continued to gain in popularity, Rudolf Steiner broke away. Fire is one of the 4 classical elements in ancient Greek philosophy, along with water, earth, air, and the 5th element is ether. Fire is considered to be both hot and dry, and according to Plato, is associated with the tetrahedron, which is a triangular pyramid. In one Greek myth, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans, but was punished for it. I've previously compared Prometheus to Lucifer, the light bearer, in prior videos, and in this context, fire is symbolic of resurrection or rebirth, as well as intellect and reason, or knowledge, and this includes an inner knowing, or gnosis. In most Wiccan traditions, as well as schools of mysticism and Freemasonry, fire has a dual nature, and is present, for example, during the ceremony of winter solstice, and represents creation and light on one hand, and destruction and purification on the other. Many of the esoteric schools of thought in the contemporary occult community were influenced by the Golden Dawn, or Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, to differentiate it from the political party in Greece. And it was a secret society during the 19th and 20th century devoted to the study of metaphysics, paranormal activities, and ceremonial magic, spelled with a K, the type made popular by Aleister Crowley. The founders were Freemasons, and the organization was based on a similar system of hierarchy and initiation, like one finds in Masonic lodges, However, women were admitted on an equal basis with men. The stated goals were spiritual development, and the order taught esoteric philosophy based on the Kabbalah, astrology, tarot, and other forms of divination such as geomancy. And inner members were taught more esoteric practices such as scrying, which might be called fortune telling, astral travel, and the real alchemy, which has nothing to do with transmuting metals. In the higher levels, spirit communications were said to take place, which were considered to be with supernatural entities known as the secret chiefs. While some followers of the Golden Dawn tradition believed that the secret chiefs were not supernatural beings, but rather symbolic representations of actual or legendary sources of spiritual esotericism, which found its way into the teachings of the order. Others insist that they are indeed discarnate entities, that is to say, conscious beings that do not occupy a physical body, which dictate and direct the activities of the organization. For those that do not believe such things exist, another possibility is that the members enter into a trance state during or following prolonged sex rituals in which parts of the subconscious mind is accessed and information is retrieved in that way. In any event, the Golden Dawn was well established in Great Britain by 1900, and its membership included many celebrities, as well as Aleister Crowley himself. Other notable members included H.P. Lovecraft, an American author most famous for writing in the horror fiction genre, forbidden knowledge, and non-human influences on humanity. Race is the most controversial aspect of Lovecraft's legacy, and were he alive today, I'm sure all of his work would be censored and unpublished. Another rumored member was Bram Stoker, a famous Irish author, best known today for his novel Dracula. Charles Henry Allen Bennett was a member. He was a friend of Aleister Crowley and best known for introducing Buddhism to the West. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a member. He was author of Sherlock Holmes, and there were many others, especially authors and those in the arts. The grades or levels of the Golden Dawn were based on the Kabbalistic tree of life, but the same or a similar model was used 1 or 2 centuries earlier in Germany, where Rosicrucian ideas flourished, from Hesse in the north to Bavaria in the south. The modern German occult revival owes its inception to the popularity of Theosophy, a religion established in the United States during the late 19th century, founded primarily by the Russian immigrant Helena Blavatsky. Her slogan was, "There is no religion higher than truth," and while her writings were based largely upon Asian religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, she was well aware of their common ancient Aryan origins, which also tie into older European philosophies and Neoplatonism, which can all trace their roots, according to Blavatsky herself, back to the mythical Atlantis. That said, the original Knights Templar, founded around 1119, had been a crusading military order that established financial networks across the entire Christian world, including parts of the Middle East. King Philip IV of France stripped the order of its economic and political influence, probably at least in part because he was in so much debt to them financially, and accused the Templars of satanic practices, perversions, blasphemy, and other sins. During this period of time in Europe, many sexual practices were considered a sin, and this goes back to the Garden of Eden story, in which the fall of mankind was, in esoteric interpretations of the story, due to carnal acts, represented by the eating of the forbidden fruit. I've discussed this already in several videos, and will leave links in the description for those that are interested. These sex rituals were part of the secret treasures brought back into Europe by the Templars, which involved spiritual esoteric knowledge rather than just gold, as they were already extremely wealthy from their banking practices. These occult techniques became the foundation of the higher levels of secret societies such as the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, the OTO, and many others, including the Thule and Vril societies, which were established in pre-World War II Germany. Rudolf Steiner was made General Secretary of the German Theosophical Society in 1902. Steiner was an Austrian author whose political views were antagonistic to National Socialism. In other words, he was against the Nationalist Socialist Party, yet despite that well-known fact, published these words, quote, "The ancestors of the Atlanteans lived in a region which has disappeared. The greatest part of the Atlantean population declined, and from a small portion are descended the so-called Aryans who comprise present-day civilized humanity." Ever since the mid-17th century, scholars have noted similarities among the more than 400 dialects of the Indo-European languages. Researchers agree that they can all be traced back to one ancestral language called Proto-Indo-European or Aryan. Geneticists compared mitochondrial DNA from blue-eyed individuals in countries as diverse as Jordan, Denmark, and Turkey, concluding that people with blue eyes share ancestry from a demographic that lived by the Black Sea around 10,000 years ago, spreading out with agriculture. According to Professor Eidelberg from the Department of Cellular and Molecular Medicine at the University of Copenhagen, quote, "The first blue-eyed humans were among the Proto-Indo-Europeans, or Aryans, who subsequently spread agriculture into Western Europe and later rode horses into Iran and India." Why is it that this blue-eyed phenotype, which comprises only 6% of the world's population, would have such a great impact on the creation and dissemination of agricultural civilization worldwide? The answer is faithfully rendered in the biblical story of Noah, which is about how survivors from the Pleistocene, or Ice Age, saved domesticated animals used in agriculture, such as horses and oxen, into the Holocene, our current age. Noah was said to have settled on Mount Ararat, which is part of the Caucasus Mountains, where we get the word Caucasian from. For those that do not subscribe to biblical references, please feel free to contact any professor in the anthropology department of any accredited university and ask them why it is that agricultural civilization started so early in places like Mesopotamia and did not, for example, in places like Papua New Guinea or the Andaman Islands between India and Thailand, where there are still isolated native tribes living today in the Stone Age. Any legitimate anthropologist will be well aware of the vital role domesticated animals played in the development of early mass agriculture. And there's only one group of people that retained horses, cattle, and the like, which is why they totally dominated the Holocene, becoming the ethnic nobility and perceived as gods, while other demographics did not. as similar phenomena can be seen during World War II in what are known as cargo cults. This is the true advantage in an anthropological context behind the meaning of the phrase God's chosen people, as I believe that if there is a God, he or she likely loves all people equally, but not all people had domesticated animals following the cataclysms of the Ice Age, so not all people developed and disseminated agricultural civilization equally. That is why statues of gods and nobility, as well as mummified remains from places as diverse as Peru to ancient Egypt, are all depicted with blue eyes and blonde or red hair. That is why textbooks published by the government of Mexico, which can be found in any Mexican classroom, depict their ancient pre-European god as having blonde hair and a beard. The same description given by Credo Mutwa, the 94-year-old Zulu shaman that passed away recently in South Africa, who claimed that this picture he had painted of tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed beings had been seen by black African tribes throughout that continent long before the white Europeans arrived. Credo was the official historian of the Zulu nation, and he said that when the Europeans first came, the black Africans thought that they were the return of these same white gods, which they called Mzungu. As a result, they called the European settlers by the same name. This was very much the same reaction as the Central American peoples had when Cortez and his Spanish invasion party arrived in 1519, and they thought that he was the returning god Quetzalcoatl, another god described as tall, bearded, and blue-eyed. In a previous video, I discussed recent evidence that agriculture existed in the Pleistocene, or Ice Age, and that the skull morphology, particularly the teeth, chin, and lack of prognathism of Cro-Magnon types, indicated to me that they were likely agricultural. I also associated Cro-Magnon to the mythical continent of Atlantis, assuming such an antediluvian, seafaring civilization existed during the Ice Age. That said, almost all known sources that speak of Atlantis, including psychics like Edgar Cayce and occult authors such as Madame Blavatsky, all claim that the ancient Atlanteans were sun worshippers and were known to primitive tribes that they encountered as sun gods. This solar religion kept track of the sun's path, including houses of the zodiac, as I discussed in a past video, which I will include a link to in the description section. While this was done for practical purposes, such as navigation and agriculture, it also marked the seasons and times for holding rituals. These same 8 times of the year have been translated into the various holidays still observed in many of the world religions and secret societies today. While theosophy continued to gain in popularity, Rudolf Steiner broke away and started a new organization called Anthroposophy. Steiner's orientation was closer to Christianity than the Hinduistic tone that dominated theosophy, but he didn't stray too far, publishing Lucifer, spelled with a Z, in Berlin from 1903 to 1908, and later renamed it to Lucifer Gnosis, which devoted a substantial amount to the, quote, sexual religion of the Aryans. Around this time, Guido von List was an active journalist and writer, combining Völkisch ideology and occultism into a type of esoteric doctrine. The German word Volk is similar to the English word folk. The Völkisch movement was inspired by the reconstructed traditions of the ancient Germans, and this included pre-Christian pagan practices which today are labeled as a cult. Guido von List started promoting his doctrine Armanism after Armanen, which he claimed were the heirs of the Sun King, a body of priest kings in the ancient Aryo-Germanic nation or empire. His esoteric religion seemed to have borrowed material from Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism, or at least shared it in common, and was concerned with the esoteric doctrines of gnosis, distinct from the exoteric doctrine intended for the lower social classes, Wotanism. Wotan is the German pronunciation of Odin. List claimed that the dominance of the Roman Catholic Church in Europe constituted a continuing occupation of the Germanic or Aryan tribes by the Roman Empire, albeit now in a religious form, and a continuing persecution of the ancient religion of the Germanic peoples and Celts. He also believed in the magical powers of the old runes, biorhythms, yoga, and Kabbalah, proposing research into the runes for occult insight, which was rejected by academic circles, but embraced and financed by his supporters who formed the Guido von List Society in 1908. Members of the Theosophical Society were quick to join, and the organization would influence others like the Vril Society, headed by the medium Maria Orsic. Another supporter was an ex-monk named Georg Lanz von Liebenfels, who published a lengthy article in a journal for biblical studies in 1903 called Biblical Man-Animal in English, where by a comparative survey of ancient Near East cultures, he detected evidence from iconography and literature which seemed to point to the continued survival into early historical times of hominid ape men similar to the Neanderthal men known from fossil remains in Europe, or what is now referred to as Homo erectus discovered in Java. Keep in mind, this is over 100 years before the human genome was sequenced, and European and Asian DNA were found to contain 2 to 5% genetic contribution from Neanderthals, and present-day sub-Saharan African populations that trace up to 19% of their genetic ancestry to an extinct archaic hominid species, such as Homo erectus, that is not found in the DNA of present-day Asians or present-day Caucasians.
When we see Pleiadian ships, we see a sphere of light because it's the Merkaba moving so fast. The Atlantean civilization was the product of Arthurian people, but the first Atlantis was not about pyramids. It was about the temple within. They taught us how to relate with the world. The giants were the keepers of that wisdom, of that information. The reptilians represented for us the negative and the positive. And we will explore an Anunnaki and how this created a structure for the humans to transcend.
Were you recently injured in a car accident? Look at this check for $160,000. If you're looking to get money you're owed for an injury, I want you to imagine you and your family getting that money, because I know a way that you can. Now, before you think I'm crazy, I want to show you how you can get the money that you are owed in the next 30 days. Now, if you've thought about hiring an attorney before, but you didn't because you were unsure or you had reservations, it's not your fault. You were probably given no guidance and couldn't get a straight answer out of anyone about how much money you could actually make. I want you to capitalize on a limited opportunity that can have you cashing out a massive check in the next 30 days. This opportunity won't last long, and it's perfect for anybody who's been in a car accident in the last 10 years. Do you still think it's impossible? I'm willing to guarantee that by clicking on the link below and filling out the 15-second quiz, you will get an instant quote on how much your case is worth, and me and my team will help you get the money you deserve in as little as the next 30 days. Still think it's too good to be true? Let me tell you about our client, Steven. Now, when Steven first came to us, he was really unsure if his case was going to be worth anything. He was facing a lot of uncertainties in his life, and he didn't know if he was going to get paid for his injury at all. Turns out, after filing a claim with us, he was able to take home over $100,000 in settlement from an accident that was over a year ago. It's possible. No matter what you thought in the past, you can get the money you are owed, and probably a lot more than what you were expecting. Simply click the button below and answer the questions about your case, and you will get an instant quote about your case's worth. And if you qualify, an attorney from our team will lay out a game plan instantly and for free. The fact that you have been through this pain means you deserve to be compensated. Together, we're going to hold the parties responsible and get you the money that you are owed. So what I want you to do is click the link below and fill out the 15-second quiz. And if after getting your instant quote, it says that you're qualified, it'll ask you for some additional contact details. And someone from my team will reach out and will lay out the fastest game plan for you to get the money that you are owed and get massive compensations for your injury. The YouTube video you're wanting to watch will always be there, but this opportunity and the resources behind it are limited. So you'll want to click the button below and fill out the case worth quiz. So click the button below, begin the short process, and we'll be in touch soon.
In 1905, he expanded his research, claiming that ancient Nordic peoples originated from interstellar deities, a concept that is mirrored in many cultures around the world, from Native American tribes to ancient India, and postulated that modern populations are a result of interbreeding between these ancient celestial humans and ape men, which he claims is also supported in the Genesis chapters of the Bible, where it discusses the sons of God mixing with mortals. In the same year, Lanz commenced publication of the journal Ostara, named after the pagan Germanic goddess of spring, and the following year founded Ordo Novi Templi, or the Order of the New Templars. On August 18, 1918, the Thule Society was formed, and it combined elements of the Guido von List Society, the Order of the New Templars, and identified with Wotan in triple form. And this concept can be compared to Hermes Trismegistus and the basis of Hermeticism, which I covered in a video, and I'll also include that in the description. The name Thules from an island located by Greek geographers at the northernmost extremity of the world, and according to their mythology, it was the capital of Hyperborea, a legendary country supposedly in the far north polar regions, originally mentioned by Herodotus from Egyptian sources. Some have equated the Hyperboreans with the survivors of Atlantis, who were described by Plato, again following Egyptian sources. Supposedly, Hyperborea split into two islands, which were considered to be the center of an advanced, lost civilization. Friedrich Nietzsche began his 1895 work called The Antichrist with, quote, "Let us see ourselves for what we are Hyperboreans." This notion of an antediluvian civilization from the North Pole region that predates Plato's Atlantis is mirrored in the writings of Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who wrote a book called The Arctic Home in the Vedas, where he makes the argument that the ancient, sacred Indian Vedas could only have been composed in the Arctic, and that the Aryans brought them south after the onset of the Ice Age. This idea was shared by many occult mystery schools and esoteric religions, as well as by Maria Orsic and the German Vril Society, who believed that there were remnants of these ancient civilizations which survived in subterranean caverns, and that they ultimately arrived on and later in the earth from a celestial origin. For those not familiar with Maria Orsic, she was a medium who allegedly received communications and instructions on how to construct an anti-gravitic craft, which was rumored to have been developed by the Germans during the years leading up to World War II. While there is a considerable amount of evidence supporting this technological leap by the Germans, from reports during the war of what were called Foo Fighters, or floating devices which seemed to defy gravity, to radio broadcasts of actual flying discs, such as the one that hovered above Los Angeles for an entire evening, despite being shot at by hundreds of rounds of artillery, not to mention the reports from the still classified Operation High Jump in Antarctica, where the Allied forces led by Admiral Byrd were said to have deployed a military armada in an unsuccessful effort to locate and destroy German bases built deep under the polar ice. So if there's any truth to Nordic populations that live off-world, and if they're somehow related to the ancient Aryans, who during the Pleistocene would have been known as Cro-Magnon, who appear quite suddenly in not only the fossil record, fully developed and fully modern, with not only a unique toolkit, but a unique blood factor to any other hominid on the planet, rhesus negative blood type. If there's any truth to this wild speculation, the question remains, where did Cro-Magnon come from? While the term Aryan is often linked to Ares, which is the Greek god whose equivalent is the Roman Mars, I contend that the term relates to the age of Ares, and that the name would have changed depending on the 2200-year astrological age of the precession of the equinox. So for example, during the age before Aries, they would have associated themselves with the bull or Taurus, as the Minoan civilization did, and so forth.
All right, guys, if you've been injured in a car accident, you have to check this out. So I just got this check from my attorney for $130,000. I'm going to go cash this immediately after this video, but I didn't even think I was going to qualify for anything. There wasn't a lot of damage to my car. I didn't think I was going to get anything for my injuries. And the way this works, and I put a link to this, there's this app. If you click beneath this video, there's a link to this app. But the way it works is you fill out some information about your injuries and your car accident. And immediately after you fill this out, it gives you an exact quote of how much money you can make for your case, and also it connects you with the best attorney in the area who's going to be able to get you this money. So guys, if you've been injured and you want to get compensated for your injuries, you have to check this out. Click the link beneath this video. If you want checks like $130,000 like I just got, you have to do this. So click the link in this video and it'll bring you over to this short 15-second quiz. Were you recently injured in a car accident? Look at this check for $160,000. If you're looking to get money you're owed for an injury, I want you to imagine you and your family getting that money, because I know a way that you can. Now, before you think I'm crazy, I want to show you how you can get the money that you are owed in the next 30 days. Now, if you've thought about hiring an attorney before, but you didn't because you were unsure or you had reservations, it's not your fault. You were probably given no guidance and couldn't get a straight answer out of anyone about how much money you could actually make. I want you to capitalize on a limited opportunity that can have you cashing out a massive check in the next 30 days. This opportunity won't last long, and it's perfect for anybody who's been in a car accident in the last 10 years. Do you still think it's impossible? I'm willing to guarantee that by clicking on the link below and filling out the 15-second quiz, you will get an instant quote on how much your case is worth, and me and my team will help you get the money you deserve in as little as the next 30 days. Still think it's too good to be true? Let me tell you about our client, Steven. Now, when Steven first came to us, he was really unsure if his case was going to be worth anything. He was facing a lot of uncertainties in his life, and he didn't know if he was going to get paid for his injury at all. Turns out, after filing a claim with us, he was able to take home over $100,000 in settlement from an accident that was over a year ago. It's possible. No matter what you thought in the past, you can get the money you are owed, and probably a lot more than what you were expecting. Simply click the button below and answer the questions about your case, and you will get an instant quote about your case's worth. And if you qualify, an attorney from our team will lay out a game plan instantly and for free. The fact that you have been through this pain means you deserve to be compensated. Together, we're going to hold the parties responsible and get you the money that you are owed. You deserve more, and we're going to get you more. So what I want you to do is click the link below and fill out the 15-second quiz. And if after getting your instant quote, it says that you're qualified, it'll ask you for some additional contact details. And someone from my team will reach out and will lay out the fastest game plan for you to get the money that you are owed and get massive compensations for your injury. The YouTube video you're wanting to watch will always be there, but this opportunity and the resources behind it are limited. So you'll want to click the button below and fill out the case worth quiz. So click the button below, begin the short process, and we'll be in touch soon.
According to Maria Orsic, the home world was actually much farther away than Mars. It was a planet around the star Aldebaran, which is in the constellation of Taurus and seems to be accurately depicted in ancient Cro-Magnon cave paintings as the bull eye in between Orion and the Pleiades, in a cave that is sealed off and forbidden to enter. My name is Stoll, Axel Stoll. I'm a doctor of natural sciences. I'm familiar with all natural sciences and look at the problems in its entirety. Are you also Aryan? Yes, of course. I'm of Germanic heritage, that's all. My father was a military officer and volunteered to the SS during World War II. He was obligated to have an Aryan certificate. It's interesting, almost everyone was in the military, and your family had to have an Aryan certificate. Yes, my father, of course, all military personnel. And that's the reason why I'm quite knowledgeable in military technology. Here's the German flying saucers, developments as you can see. These are the early models, saucer models 1, 2, and 3. And these are the Haunebu flying saucers, different models. Haunebu, yes, the name Haunebu, Haunebu. It's of Germanic origin. There's a swastika painted on it, yes, on the initial ones. The moon is populated, Mars is populated by Nazis, and a few more planets. Probably also several other fixed star systems, but that's a guess. But that would mean that the moon and Mars is inhabited by Nazis? Yes, that's correct. The backside of the moon. Have you seen a UFO? Yes, several. Where? Here in the area of Berlin. Several. They perform vigorous aerial maneuvers. The movement, zack, zack, zack. And they're piloted by the Aryans? Yes, that's correct. So where did the Aryans come from? Presumably, but I can't prove it, from Aldebaran. From that star system. From the star system of the head of the Taurus, 68 light years away. With effects faster than light, it's only a short hop. So the Aryans basically weren't born on this planet? No, not born on this Earth. Well, there was also so-called Vril Society in the Third Reich. and they had telepathic contact to Aldebaran with the Vril women, mediums. What about the wisdom of the Aryans? Are they more intelligent? How high is their IQ? High, very high. Were there also black people on Aldebaran? No. This planet is a prison planet. My name is Robert Sepper. I'm an anthropologist. My published work is available on Amazon, as well as through various other major book outlets. They make a great gift. If you'd like to support my work, you can do that through patreon.com. There should be a link in the description section for those who are interested. I appreciate it. Thank you. As always, I look forward to reading your comments, so please leave me your thoughts below. Please have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you again soon.
The Major Arcana, or the 22 Keys of the Tarot, is a picture book of wisdom that depicts the journey of mystical ascension and transformation. This is the process of what we call mental alchemy or spiritual alchemy, is that we can learn to take that energy from wherever it is right now and shift it, change its vibration, take it through the transformational process, and bring it to the balance point and transform our shadow into light. Where does tarot come from? The tarot that we know of today mostly traces its history back to Renaissance Italy and France. But the wisdom they drew from had its roots in the ancient Egyptian mystery schools of Thoth, the god of wisdom, thousands of years earlier. Desire and the quest for knowledge are the two things that drive the magician in his work. He encourages us to take action rather than simply wishing for change or success to just happen for us, and he gives us the ability to make our own reality. The Lovers represent our lessons of choice and making decisions, especially as we learn the experience of our world of duality. And by working with the Lovers and invoking its energies into your life, you too can awaken the powers of love and discernment within you.
Hi there, it's Sophie Howard here, and I've noticed that you saw my book, The Amazon Boom, but didn't go for the deal. And I get it, I know we're busy, there's lots to read, you can't tell what kind of value you're going to get out of a book that you read. But what I want to tell you about this book is that there's a lot.
This is Dabu7. We have word today that a nuclear reactor in Finland has entered an automatic shutdown after a radiation spike has been detected inside the plant's systems. They're saying that no radiation escaped the facility during this. And this is coming from the country's Nuclear Safety Board. They're saying there's no danger to the people or the environment from the incident that took place at the power plant in Finland. Now, we don't have an explanation for exactly what happened. They do go on to state that this thing went into an automatic shutdown throughout all of this, and that they're labeling this whole incident serious. Now, this reactor itself began operations back in 1980. Right now, they're saying that it shut down automatically for some reason, which they do not know. They say that there's no harm anywhere, no release, but it's labeled a serious incident. So anytime we see something with a nuclear reactor or anything like this going into shutdown or red flags being thrown, it's wise to pay attention and make note of it. And that's what we're doing here. Yeah, this thing is old, and we'll see what happens with this site from here, but it may stay shut down. If we get any word of any release of radiation, I'll update via Twitter. Make sure that you're following me over on Twitter and Parler if you're over there for those escaping Twitter. And also over here on DLive, going live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. You'll find links below in the description box. Much love, y'all.
Our holiday gift guide is here. This year, give the gift of comfort and save up to 20% on bedding, cushions, and more. Holiday shopping, done and done. Plus, grab a set of limited edition Sleepy Jones and purple PJs made from the same material.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Saturn-Jupiter conjunction just a few days away. And I'm wondering, with such limited air traffic, how all this is stacking up like a tic-tac-toe board in my skies. Tasmania, snow the second day of summer in Australia. They call it missing out on a heat wave over the weekend. Historic missed out on a heat wave snowfall. Europe, these guys missed out on the heat wave too. And perhaps it's because of the sunspots. Are you ready for the super flare? It's gonna be a biggie. As Americans seek economic protection after the most controversial election in U.S. history, year to date in 2020 alone, gold is up 30% and silver rising more than 50%. And now we're entering a new year facing economic realities of a global economic crisis caused by COVID and political reactions. Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or physical silver. And the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 5 years in a row from 2016 to present. To find more information, the link's in the description box below. And now on with the video. And easily seen in the night skies. I saw this myself tonight. Saturn, Jupiter, just after sunset, looking in the direct west. It'll be the closest that the two planets have been on December 21st during the solstice since 1226 AD. Marking the beginning of a new age into the first minute of the first degree of arc through Aquarius. Perhaps that's one of the reasons that so many things are changing. Sunspots could be another as we're entering in the grand solar minimum. A new article out predicting a massive solar cycle coming up. That's to be seen. This one has started off incredibly low and incredibly slow. But these new images of the granules on the sun, unbelievable clarity on this. And it almost was like a phoenix rising out at that 12 o'clock position. These are some of the highest resolution images of sunspots ever taken from satellite to date. I encourage you to take a look. I linked that in the description box below. They're going real time, second by second now on the movements of the magnetic fields. Perhaps another change is all of these strange lines in the sky. Air travel has taken such a gargantuan hit that they're laying off hundreds of thousands of employees across the planet in different airlines, different continents. Yet how could there be so much air travel stacking up on top of each other right here in perfect parallel lines? And then as it continues through the morning, I thought, wow, look at all the air traffic, and we're not even in a major city. I'm in the countryside. And I look at this stacking up saying, who is playing tic-tac-toe in the sky? And even another following day, beautiful weather in the morning, it starts blue, and then you start to see the lines stacking up everywhere, and give it a couple hours. And even these remote areas, look at the road I drive down to go to my property. And this is what happens after a few hours. Maybe this is a causation of all the changes. Maybe it's a combination of magnetic influences from the planet.